"You're lost. This place isn't for you." His words detonated across the luxury showroom like a bomb, echoing under the glitter of crystal chandeliers. Every head turned. Every breath in the room sharpened. A laugh followed sharp, cruel from the woman at his side. Her hand pressed against her necklace as if mocking the very idea that the black woman in front of them could belong here. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now, back to her. She didn't flinch. She didn't stammer. She stood still, posture straight, her blue dress catching the light like calm water in a storm. He, the director of the showroom, pointed at her as though she were an intruder trespassing in his empire. But he didn't know whose empire it truly was. The showroom itself was flawless. Polished white floors, rows of red and black sports cars gleaming like jewels, and a hush that usually felt exclusive, aspirational. But now, that hush turned heavy, poisoned by bias. Employees in tailored suits circled quietly, their eyes darting between the shouting man and the silent woman. The man's tone carried the confidence of someone who thought power belonged to him. "You don't have business here," he snapped, his jaw tight. His partner laughed again, tilting her head, savoring the humiliation she thought she was witnessing. Around them, clients paused mid-conversation, uncertain whether to watch or look away. She let the silence stretch, the weight of it pressing back against their arrogance. This wasn't the first time she had been told she didn't belong in a place built on money, glass, and power. At 23, she remembered standing outside another dealership, her loan application denied with a smirk. At 31, she remembered being told her investment proposal looked too ambitious. Those memories lived in her bones, but they didn't weaken her. They forged her. Now, decades later, she stood again in the fire. Only this time, she wasn't here to ask. She was here to decide. The laughter beside him cut off when her eyes finally shifted calm, steady, unshaken. It was the kind of gaze that made rooms fall quiet, the kind that suggested she knew something they didn't. Because she did. What the director saw was a woman he thought was lost. What the room was about to learn was that she was the only one who knew exactly where she was standing, and soon they would know why. GPT Black CEO Moy said. She didn't move when the silence thickened. The chandeliers above sparkled like frozen stars, but the room itself felt colder than steel. Across from her, the director adjusted his cufflinks and leaned closer, as if proximity could amplify his authority. "You're wasting our time," he said, voice sharp enough to draw blood. The woman beside him, still smirking, added with a theatrical gasp, "Imagine thinking you could buy something here." Her laughter wasn't casual, it was designed to wound. But the woman in blue simply shifted her bag slightly, her gaze steady. She didn't reach for anger. She didn't reach for apology. She let their words hang, knowing the weight wasn't hers to carry. Behind the polished cars, a young salesman froze mid-step. His phone hovered awkwardly at his side, thumb grazing the record button. He looked from her to the director, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. Nearby, a couple who had been admiring a red sports car now whispered to each other, their faces a mix of curiosity and disbelief. The director noticed none of it. His ego filled the space louder than the engines on display. He jabbed a finger toward the exit. "Security will handle this if you don't walk out now." His tone wasn't professional, it was personal. She remembered this tone. At 25, she had walked into a bank to secure her first property loan. The manager never looked up from his desk when he said, "Not for people like you." She left with her dignity intact, but also with a vow. That vow had carried her through decades, through contracts and boardrooms, until she stood here today, facing the same prejudice dressed in a different suit. One of the clients spoke softly, almost to himself but loud enough to travel. "She hasn't done anything wrong." The words cracked the silence, pulling attention. The young salesman finally raised his phone chest high, recording now, his hands shaking. The woman in blue finally spoke, her voice low, calm, but carrying through the marble hall. All this noise for one question. Her eyes met the director's. "Why do you think I don't belong?" The laugh beside him faltered. The director's jaw tightened. He doubled down. "Because this is a showroom for real buyers. Not dreamers, not imposters." He swept his hand across the line of cars as if to remind her of the wealth she was supposedly excluded from. She didn't blink. She didn't argue. Her silence was heavier than his shouting, and that stillness unsettled him more than any raised voice could have. In that pause, in that breath, the balance of power began subtly, invisibly to shift. The tension in the showroom rippled outward like a crack spreading across glass. The director stepped closer, voice rising as though volume could disguise insecurity. "You think silence makes you strong?" he spat. "It makes you look guilty." His words weren't just aimed at her, they were meant to draw the whole room to his side. A few employees shifted uncomfortably, their polished shoes squeaking against the marble floor. The woman beside him folded her arms, smirk widening, feeding on the performance. The woman in blue remained still. Her silence wasn't guilt, it was gravity. She stood as though anchored, as though the storm belonged to someone else. A middle-aged customer near the corner coughed deliberately. "She hasn't raised her voice once," he said under his breath, but loud enough to stir whispers. The director snapped his head toward the man. "Stay out of this. You don't know who she is." The irony was sharp, he didn't know either. From the back of the room, a young mechanic, his uniform smudged with grease, exchanged glances with the salesman holding his phone. "Should I?" the mechanic muttered. The salesman shook his head. "Just let it run." The tiny red light of the camera glowed, a witness in digital form. Then came the final shove. The director reached out, snatched the folder from her hand, and let it fall to the floor with a slap that echoed against steel and glass. Papers scattered like discarded worth. "Get out," he barked. "This floor is reserved for real clients, not pretenders trying to play rich." Gasps filled the air. The couple by the red sports car stiffened. The young salesman flinched but kept recording. Even the smirking woman's laughter faltered for a heartbeat before she forced it back. The woman in blue bent slightly, collected her papers with unhurried precision, and straightened again. Her movements carried the same calm as before, but now her silence pressed like a warning. She remembered being 28, sitting across from a corporate board where one executive leaned back and told her, "You'll never lead men who don't respect you." She hadn't argued then either. She had let results speak, and results had built empires. The director, blinded by arrogance, didn't see the shift in the room. Eyes weren't mocking anymore, they were questioning. Witnesses were forming without a word. She lifted her gaze once more, her voice even deliberate. All this, for one assumption. The air in the showroom wasn't quiet anymore. It was charged. Every person knew the next words, the next move, would decide who truly belonged in that room. The papers she gathered trembled only because the air itself was trembling. Phones were out now. 2 clients near the entrance had raised theirs, one pretending to check messages while the camera clearly pointed toward the scene. The director noticed, but it only fueled his arrogance. "Record all you want," he sneered. "It won't change the fact that this showroom doesn't entertain frauds." He spat the word like a verdict, his voice echoing against polished steel and tinted glass. The woman beside him chimed in, her laugh thin and cruel. She probably wandered in from the sidewalk thinking a business card makes her somebody. Still, the woman in blue did not react. Her silence pressed against the room like a tide no one could stop. A salesman in his 20s finally stepped forward, his voice cracking. "Sir, maybe we should just check her reservation in the system." The director cut him off, his tone sharp as a whip. "Back to your post. Don't question me again." The young man's jaw tightened, but he obeyed, eyes darting back to the woman with quiet apology. The woman in blue finally broke her stillness. She reached into her bag, not with haste, but with the unhurried calm of someone controlling the clock. She pulled out her phone, tapped once, and held it to her ear. Her words were simple, measured. "Activate verification protocol. Live. Inside the showroom." The assistant's voice on the other end answered immediately, crisp and professional. "Confirmed. Logging incident now." The director chuckled bitterly. "Calling for backup? That won't save you." He leaned closer, his cologne cloying in the heavy air. "I've been in this business 20 years. I can spot a fake from a mile away." She lifted her eyes, steady, unblinking. "Then maybe it's time you questioned your vision." The smirk froze. For the first time, a flicker of doubt crossed his face. It was small, gone in a heartbeat, but the room caught it. One of the clients whispered, "She doesn't look worried." Another replied, "She looks like she knows something." The mechanic in the back crossed his arms, eyes narrowing at his own boss. He'd seen arrogance before, but never this level of desperation. The woman in blue stayed on the line. "Document every word, every gesture," she said softly, "especially his." And her assistant's reply came fast. "Already noted. Video and audio timestamps secured." The director tried to laugh, but it landed flat. "You think your little stunt will matter? This is my showroom." Her answer was colder than glass, quieter than the hum of the cars. "No, it isn't." The silence that followed didn't feel like defeat. It felt like the prelude to judgment. And for the first time, the director wasn't certain who was about to deliver it. The hum of the showroom shifted. What had started as a scene of humiliation was now drawing witnesses like moths to flame. A teenage boy, standing with his father near the glass doors, whispered, "Dad, why are they treating her like that?" The father's jaw clenched, but his phone came up, lens steady. The director saw it and barked, "Turn that off. This is private property." His voice cracked, too sharp, too desperate. That desperation was noticed. The couple by the red sports car exchanged a look, half doubt, half disapproval. One of them murmured, "She hasn't done anything wrong." The murmur carried, growing legs, weaving into the air like a rumor too strong to contain. The young salesman who had been silenced earlier took a single step forward, voice firmer this time. "Sir, it doesn't look right." His phone was still in his hand, recording openly now. The director's face reddened. "Not another word from you or you're out." He jabbed a finger so hard it trembled. The smirking woman beside him added, "She's making a fool of herself, and you're all falling for it." But the words didn't land the same anymore. Too many eyes had shifted. Too many ears had picked up the cracks. The woman in blue finally spoke again, her tone so calm it silenced even the clicking of nearby heels. "You're afraid of proof," she said. "That's why you shout. That's why you threaten." The mechanic in the back muttered, not quietly enough, "She's right." His voice, rough from years of labor, sounded like something carved from stone. It cut through the polished arrogance of the room. For the first time, the director faltered. His words came slower, his authority leaking away like air from a punctured tire. "You don't belong here," he insisted, but the echo no longer carried weight. The woman in blue didn't flinch. "Belonging isn't granted by you," she replied. Her assistant's voice, still steady through the phone, added, "Verification complete. Ownership files are on standby, awaiting your word." The director blinked, his composure slipping. Around him, silence wasn't on his side anymore. It pressed down like judgment, heavy and inescapable. The teenage boy near the door tugged his father's sleeve. "She looks like she's in charge." His father didn't answer, but his eyes stayed fixed on her, watchful, certain. The room was no longer just a showroom. It was a stage, every phone a spotlight, every witness a jury. And the verdict was inching closer, written not in shouts, but in silence that had turned against the man who thought it was his weapon. For the first time, the director's voice shook. "You're bluffing." But even he didn't sound convinced. The director's words cracked like glass, but they didn't shatter her. They shattered him. "Bluffing?" The woman in blue tilted her head slightly, her voice steady, unshaken. "If I were bluffing, would you be sweating?" A ripple moved through the crowd. Clients shifted, employees fidgeted. The smirk on the woman at his side faltered just enough to betray her unease. The director clenched his fists. "Security!" he barked toward the far corner. A uniformed guard, stocky and uncertain, began to approach. His steps echoed against marble, but each one seemed heavier than the last. As he took in the scene, cameras raised, witnesses watching, judgment already forming. The woman in blue didn't move. She simply lowered her phone from her ear, her assistant's voice still audible. "Protocol escalation confirmed. Incident logged, with live feed." The guard hesitated, looking between her calm composure and the director's reddened face. "What exactly did she do?" he asked carefully. "She's a fraud," the director snapped. "She doesn't belong in this room. She's pretending." But the sentence was swallowed by murmurs. A client near the entrance shook his head. "That doesn't sound like pretending." His phone was still up, recording. "That sounds like confidence." The director turned, face tightening. "You people don't understand. This isn't about—" "Exactly," the woman interrupted, her voice soft but cutting. "You don't understand. You think wealth looks like you. You think power dresses like you. But what you really revealed today is your fear that someone who looks like me could own everything you see." The words landed like a gavel. The smirking woman stepped back a half pace, as if the ground beneath her had shifted. The mechanic in the back finally spoke louder. "Boss, she's not bluffing. You should listen." His voice wasn't defiant. It was tired, resigned, as though he'd seen too many days like this. Phones captured every angle now, lenses steady, light blinking red. The showroom was no longer a private display of cars, it was a public courtroom. The director jabbed his finger at the guard. "Remove her now." The guard swallowed, his voice low but firm. "On what grounds?" Silence. For the first time, the director had no answer. His authority hung in the air, trembling, fragile. The woman in blue took one small step forward, her presence filling the space without raising her voice. "You called me an imposter in a showroom that depends on me to exist. That's not authority, that's arrogance." And the room felt it. The shift, the turn. The balance was no longer his. It hadn't been for some time. The director's voice broke into a shout, louder than before. Desperate now. "She's a liar. She forged everything. Throw her out." His words cracked against the marble walls, but the weight behind them was gone. The uniformed guard froze halfway, caught between duty and doubt. His gaze flicked to the phones raised around the room. Every lens meant accountability. Every whisper meant evidence. The smirking woman at his side tried to recover the room's energy, sneering loudly. "Look at her. Designer showroom, multi-million-dollar cars. Does she look like someone who could afford this? Be serious." Gasps followed, sharper this time. A man in a tailored suit near the window muttered, "I've spent my life in boardrooms, and I know what authority looks like. It's her, not him." The mechanic in the corner crossed his arms tighter. The young salesman finally stepped forward again, braver than before. "Enough," he said, voice trembling but firm. "You're humiliating her for no reason. I've seen her name on the investor list." His words fell into the air like a stone into still water, sending ripples across the room. The director spun on him, face red. "You don't know what you're talking about. One more lie like that and you're fired." But it was too late. The clients heard it, the guard heard it, the cameras caught it. The more he shouted, the smaller he looked. The woman in blue didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She bent, picked up one of the scattered documents he had thrown earlier, and placed it gently on a car hood polished to a mirror shine. "You want proof?" she asked softly, her reflection doubling in the steel. "Ask the system you trust so much. Run my name." The salesman nodded quickly, tapping at his tablet with shaking hands. The smirking woman tried to stop him. "Don't waste time on her." Too late. The screen lit up. His breath caught. It's real." "It's not just real, she's marked as executive-level clearance." The director's face drained of color. He snatched at the tablet, but the salesman held it away. The clients leaned in, whispering louder now. One woman raised her voice. "So she does belong here." The woman in blue remained calm, eyes fixed on the director. "Every insult you've spoken is already recorded. Every action, every word. The question isn't whether I belong. The question is whether you'll survive what comes next." Oh. Silence slammed down. The guard lowered his hands. The smirk on the other woman's face collapsed entirely. And for the first time, the director's confidence cracked into something raw and brittle fear. The director's fear was visible now, clinging to him like sweat. His voice strained against the silence. "She hacked it, she must have hacked the system," he shouted, pointing at the salesman's tablet as if the screen itself had betrayed him. The salesman's hands shook, but his voice steadied. "No, sir. This isn't a glitch. Her profile is embedded in the investor registry. Executive level, just like she said." He turned the screen outward, and the blue and gold header of the database glowed like a verdict under the showroom lights. Murmurs spread quickly, rising into a wave. A woman near the glass entrance lifted her phone higher, narrating softly for her live stream. "They tried to throw her out, and now it turns out she outranks all of them." The smirking woman, once so loud, stepped back into the shadow of a sports car. Her lips parted, but no words came. The director lunged for the tablet, his desperation unraveling in front of everyone. "That system isn't final, it's under review." The woman in blue cut him off, her voice quiet but final. "What's under review is your employment." Her phone, still in her hand, chimed. Her assistant's voice rang clear. "Protocol complete. Compliance board is now monitoring this incident live. Your verbal attacks, the attempted removal, and the falsified accusations have all been logged." Gasps. Phones tilted higher. The mechanic muttered under his breath, "He's done." "And her?" The director tried again, his voice shrill. "You don't have the authority to—" Her reply was swift, sharper than any shout. "I have more than authority. I have ownership." The sentence hit like thunder. The teenage boy by the door whispered, "She owns this place?" His father nodded slowly, eyes fixed on her with something close to pride. The director staggered back a step, pale. He looked to the guard for support, but the guard lowered his hands and said nothing. Authority had shifted. The room felt it. The woman in blue took a single step forward, each heel click echoing across the marble. She didn't raise her chin. She didn't need to. "For 20 minutes you've tried to erase me. You've called me a fraud. You've stolen my documents. You've ordered me out of a showroom built with my investment. And yet," she spread her hand lightly toward the crowd of witnesses, "I am still here, standing, silent, watched." The crowd absorbed every word. The director's lips moved, but the only sound that left was a broken whisper. "This isn't possible." Her eyes locked on his, steady and absolute. "It's more than possible. It's reality. And reality has no patience left for you." The silence that followed didn't feel like waiting anymore. It felt like judgment had already been delivered. The director's body stiffened as if the ground itself had betrayed him. His eyes darted between the glowing tablet screen, the phones raised around the room, and the woman in blue who hadn't moved an inch. His empire, at least the one he thought he ruled, was unraveling in real time. "You're lying," he tried again, voice breaking. "You planted this. You tricked them." The young salesman held the tablet tighter, shaking his head. "No, sir. This isn't planted. It's cross-linked to corporate records. Her clearance overrides yours." His words weren't loud, but they echoed like gunfire in the hush of the showroom. The smirking woman beside the director stepped back farther, pressing her back against the hood of a black coupe, as though the car could shield her from the truth. Her confidence had evaporated. The woman in blue, still calm, still unshaken, lifted her phone to her ear once more. Her assistant's voice came through clearly. "Corporate has issued directive approval. If you choose, we can initiate full contract withdrawal immediately." The director's face blanched. He lunged forward, voice ragged. "No, you can't just walk away from $6 billion. That deal keeps this entire chain alive." Gasps rippled through the crowd. $6 billion. The figure hung in the air like smoke, choking, inescapable. The clients, the employees, even the guard all looked at her differently now, not just with curiosity, but with awe. She let the silence stretch a moment longer before answering, her tone sharper than glass. "You should have thought of that before you called me a fraud." The mechanic exhaled, almost a laugh but heavy with disbelief. $6 billion? And he treated her like nothing. The teenage boy near the door whispered to his father, "She owns the deal, all of it." His father nodded slowly, eyes never leaving her. The director's hands trembled. "You wouldn't. You can't. If you pull out, the whole showroom, no, the whole network collapses. Thousands of jobs." Her eyes narrowed, not cruel, but steady. "I don't destroy livelihoods. I destroy arrogance. What happens to this place now is because of you." Her assistant's voice returned, calm and efficient. "Board authorization standing by. One word, and the deal is null." The crowd wasn't whispering anymore. Phones were steady. The air was electric, charged with anticipation. The director sagged against the edge of a car, his authority collapsing with him. "Please," he muttered, his bravado gone, replaced by a quiet panic. But the woman in blue didn't answer yet. She let the weight of the moment press down, let the silence remind him of every insult he had spoken. The next move belonged to her, and everyone knew it. The silence inside the showroom was no longer awkward, it was suffocating. Every witness, every phone, every set of eyes weighed on the director as though the marble floor itself had tilted against him. He tried to speak, but his lips only trembled. The woman in blue stood taller now, though she hadn't moved an inch. Her calm radiated outward, unshakable, inescapable. She raised her phone slightly, her voice even. "Confirm on record. Withdrawal from Horizon Automotive contract. $6 billion. Frozen. Immediate effect." On the other end, her assistant's voice cut through the charged air. "Confirmed. System processing. Termination protocol initiated." A gasp swept through the room. The smirking woman who once laughed at her pressed both hands against her chest, face drained of color. The young salesman's jaw fell open. his tablet screen flashing with updates as corporate access codes cycled in real time. The director staggered forward, desperation etched across his features. "No, you can't do this. Think of the jobs, the families. I was wrong, His voice cracked. He sounded less like a man in charge, and more like a man begging for oxygen. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "You humiliated me in front of strangers. You tried to erase me in a place my money built. Now you want sympathy?" Her words were measured, steady, but they landed like a hammer. The mechanic in the back muttered. She warned him. A woman near the door whispered into her phone, live stream still running. She just froze $6 billion with a call. The director collapsed into a nearby chair, his authority evaporated. "Please," he said again, but no one rushed to save him. Not the guard, not the employees, not even the woman who once smirked at his side. The woman in blue lowered her phone, eyes sweeping the showroom. "Let the record show," she said calmly, "that the arrogance of one man brought this house down." Ugh. The salesman's tablet buzzed. He looked at her, awe mixing with fear. "It's done," he whispered. "The contract's gone. Frozen." The teenage boy near the door whispered to his father. She didn't even shout. His father replied, "That's real power." Every witness understood now. This wasn't a bluff. This wasn't theater. It was judgment swift, precise, irreversible. And as the director buried his face in trembling hands, the woman in blue stood in the center of the showroom, untouched, unbroken, the very embodiment of power hidden in plain sight. The director's badge buzzed red against his chest. A faint electronic chime signaled what everyone already knew: he was locked out. His access, his authority, his illusion of power, gone in an instant. The salesman's tablet confirmed it, corporate seals flashing across the screen. "He's removed from the system," the young man said, half to himself, half to the room. "Credentials revoked. Effective immediately." A stunned hush rolled through the showroom. The smirking woman who once mocked now looked cornered. Her laughter dried up. She reached for her own phone, desperate for control, but her screen flashed the same message: access denied. The mechanic crossed his arms, eyes steady on his former boss. "Guess the system finally caught up with you," he said. It wasn't cruel, it was matter of fact. The final nail in the coffin of arrogance. The director's breathing grew shallow. "You don't understand," he muttered, voice cracking. "This isn't how things work. I built this showroom. I kept it alive." The woman in blue took one measured step forward. Her heels clicked against the marble like a gavel striking wood. "You didn't build it," she said quietly. "You borrowed it. You managed what was already given to you. And today you lost even that." Her phone chimed again. Her assistant's voice, calm and unwavering, filled the silence. "Corporate confirms full removal. Assets frozen. Legal documentation prepared." Phones in the crowd captured every word, every gesture. No one was on his side anymore. Even the guard, who had once moved to escort her out, stood frozen in place, arms at his sides, unwilling to move against her. The director rose shakily to his feet, eyes darting. "You can't. There must be an appeal process." "There is none," she replied. Her gaze didn't waver. "Not when prejudice is policy. Not when arrogance is leadership." Gasps rippled through the crowd again. A woman near the door, live stream still rolling, whispered, "She just ended him. Right here." The director sagged against a polished hood, trembling. His empire had crumbled not with fire or fury, but with the quiet efficiency of truth. The woman in blue let her words fall into the silence, calm but unrelenting. "This isn't revenge. This is accountability." Every phone, every witness, every set of eyes saw it for what it was, not a scene of collapse, but of justice delivered, clean and absolute. The showroom no longer belonged to him. It never had. It stood now as evidence of who truly held the keys. The director's voice had shrunk to a whisper. "This can't be happening," he muttered, staring at the badge still flashing red on his chest. His hands trembled as if the little piece of plastic could anchor him back into power. It couldn't. The woman in blue stood motionless in the center of the showroom. She didn't need to raise her arms, didn't need to claim space. Space claimed her. The chandeliers above threw light across her calm expression. And in that calm, the truth was unmistakable. She turned slightly, sweeping her eyes across the witnesses. Clients, employees, Strangers who had walked in to see cars and now found themselves watching justice unfold in real time. Her voice, low but resolute, carried easily. What you just witnessed is the cost of arrogance. A man mistook silence for weakness. He mistook appearance for worth. And he forgot who actually built this empire. The crowd absorbed every syllable. Some lowered their phones, realizing they no longer needed proof truth had already filled the room. The smirking woman, once smug, now kept her head bowed, clutching her purse like it was a shield. The mechanic shook his head slowly. The young salesman, tablet still glowing, looked at her with awe. She let the silence breathe before she spoke again. I don't need to shout to be heard. I don't need to beg for space that already belongs to me. Today, you all saw what happens when prejudice collides with power rooted in truth. Her assistant's voice chimed one last time from the phone. All actions are complete. System secured. Showroom under transition. Do you require further action? She answered without hesitation. No. The record is enough. Her gaze returned to the director, who had sunk into a chair, face pale, hands covering his eyes. He looked smaller now, almost invisible in the space he once dominated. She didn't sneer, she didn't mock. She simply ended it with words sharper than any blade. You tried to erase me in my own house, but understand this, erasing me was never an option. I am the record you cannot delete. The room stilled. Phones captured the final sentence. Some guests clapped softly. Others nodded in quiet agreement. The guard, who had once approached her, now stood at ease, no longer an adversary but a witness to a shift larger than himself. As she walked toward the exit, the marble floor echoed beneath her heels, not as retreat but as punctuation. She left the showroom behind, but the weight of her presence lingered like a verdict. For those who had doubted, for those who had mocked, for those who had simply watched, there was no question anymore. Dignity had not just survived the assault, it had triumphed.